Most of the world's greenhouse gases come from energy consumption, so energy must change. But renewable electricity may take decades to power every industry, and the transition to cleaner energy can be daunting.
Switching careers, I was quite afraid.
It is a big challenge for me.
Yet for those who dare, clean energy is a chance to refuel enterprise, innovation, and jobs.
You are combating climate change and really making the world a healthier planet.
This is a climate for change. Singapore is the largest petrochemical hub in Southeast Asia. Its oil refining and petrochemical sector produce nearly half of its greenhouse gas emissions.
For us to also reduce the emissions from the petrochemical hubs, new technologies would need to be utilized.
This is the story of two companies that partner the oil and gas industry as they develop groundbreaking projects that will enable more customers to refuel with cleaner energy.
My day actually starts quite early. I reach the refinery before 6 o'clock in the morning. Walking into the refinery makes me feel at home actually, because I really like to be close to the plant. The refinery represents to me something that's quite close to my heart. It is quite special, and with all the equipment that is inside the refinery, it's like a very complicated toy that I get to play with. I try to understand the refinery almost like my children in that sense, because each one of them have their own behavior, and I actually look at them like my kids, to be honest.
Like many refineries in Singapore's industrial west, the Neste Singapore refinery has access to global shipping routes. But what sets the refinery apart is the fuel it produces, renewable diesel. Unlike petroleum diesel, which is made from crude oil, Neste's renewable diesel is a biofuel made from new and used vegetable oils, animal fats, and waste residue.
Sustainable biofuels or renewable biofuels is definitely one of the important solutions to the complex problems we have in managing greenhouse gas emissions.
This renewable diesel refinery employs 300 people, and staff like Boon Loon switched over from working in a petroleum refinery.
Since young, I've been quite fond of the smell of petrol whenever my father top up his car. And in secondary school, I found that petroleum chemistry was something that I'm really interested in. So from 14 years old, I decided that I would like to work in a refinery. Back in the days when I was still in school, we don't really talk about the concept of sustainability. Making sure production is efficient is the main focus. I've started my career back in 2004 with a refinery operated by one of the oil majors, whereby the feedstock is from fossil fuel, crude oil. Now moving into renewable fuels industry, I would like to develop my career to be able to say that I made a difference in the whole cause for climate change.
The Singapore refinery was founded by an oil refining company from Finland. Neste has operations in over a dozen countries. Its CEO is Peter Vanacker.
The company started in 1947, and the company was actually created to give a certain independency to Finland in order to have the oil products for the local markets. Now, about 14, 15 years ago, the company then decided to move into a new territory, and that was with new technology that was developed for renewable diesel.
According to Neste, the carbon emissions from using renewable diesel are net zero, as the amount of carbon dioxide released by engines burning renewable diesel would equal the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed by its raw materials earlier. Neste says that the fuel cycle of renewable diesel, from feedstock to transport, refining, shipping and consumption, results in up to 90% less greenhouse gas emissions than that of petroleum diesel.
Currently, we are producing 3.2 million tons of sustainable fuels. If you look at last year, it relates to taking away 1.5 million cars off the roads, so compensating for the CO2 emissions of about 1.5 million cars. We started in Singapore in 2007 to build up, at that time, the largest renewable diesel facility in the world. And then it was started up in 2010. And one of the reasons is very obvious. It is a very central location. Singapore, you have very good access because you need to get all these different waste and residues into the plant. And then the finished products, you need to be able to export them. So the whole logistics is one of the best in the world.
With its strategic location, Singapore has become the world's leading maritime bunkering hub. Thousands of ships refuel in and around Singapore waters, topping up with 50 million tons of marine diesel and fuel oil each year. But there's a problem with marine fuel. It's relatively dirty. Marine fuel oil is a thick black liquid which contains tar and sulfur. As a result, maritime transport doesn't just emit nearly 1 trillion tons of carbon dioxide, but also tons of air pollution, including soot, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxides, which cause lung disease and acid rain.
There's been tremendous pressure on reducing emissions from the shipping sector as well, and different fuels need to be considered.
Stricter emission standards placed on the maritime sector are driving up demand for ships that run on liquefied natural gas, LNG.
LNG is emerging as a popular alternative to traditional fuel oils. Today, there are about 150 LNG-fueled vessels in water. That number is expected to triple in the next 18 months, and about 10 to 20% of new builds are expected to use LNG as fuel.
Ships powered by LNG emit 25% less carbon dioxide than ships running on conventional marine fuels. Liquefied natural gas releases less air pollution as it burns more cleanly than fuel oil. The expected surge in LNG adoption opens up new business opportunities. Keppel Offshore and Marine and Shell have embarked on a 50-50 joint venture called FueLNG that provides LNG bunkering services in Singapore and the region.
There are 3 types of ship that we submitted, right? So I think they have submitted 1 type.
My name is Andrew Salim. I'm 36 this year. I'm the operations manager for FueLNG. I'm basically in charge of the day-to-day operations for the shipping departments in FueLNG. Currently in Singapore, we have started serving our customers through our trucking operations, through the truck-to-ships operations. We have started since 2017, but this truck-to-ship service is mainly to serve the hovercraft vessels in Singapore, which is the smaller vessels. So right now, my main purpose is to actually oversee the final construction phase of the first Singapore LNG bunkering vessels for FueLNG. When we have these vessels, we will be able to start the ship-to-ships operations, and that will allow us to serve bigger customers.
We use the stripping line very much there.
FueLNG Bellina will be Singapore's first LNG bunkering vessel. Much fanfare accompanied her birth and conception. She was celebrated by the port authorities, the Singapore government, and the parent companies. The Bellina is designed to operate in Singapore's busy waters, where there are 1,000 vessels in port at any given time.
When we work together with the yard to design the ships, we have several requirements that we are looking at. We wanted the ships to have flexibility, versatility, easy to maneuver. We have a long parallel body, we have this bunker boom. It gives us the capability to serve different and multiple type of customers, whether it's on the port side or the starboard side of the vessel.
The Bellina was designed in Singapore and constructed in China. Now she's completing final tests and commissioning at the Keppel Nantong Shipyard near Shanghai.
Okay, we go to the tank number 2. Yeah, okay.
The good thing is, of course, working here at Keppel Nantong as the owner representatives has the certain advantage for me due to my previous experience in shipbuildings. The relationship with the Keppel's employees also helps. Some of them were my ex-colleagues also, so it's easier to, again, discuss things with them. Based on their experience, this global stress or load path will not affect.
One of Andreas's former colleagues is the project manager in charge of the Bellina. He's overseen her construction for about 2 years.
He actually will come out from the main to go up to the vessel. Yes.
My name is Yap Chun Yu, so my colleagues call me Yap. I'm 32 years old this year, and I'm from Singapore. For me personally, I have not been in LNG related projects before, so it is actually quite a big challenge for me.
So from the tunneling, before we talk about gassing up, so we need to be 100% sure first there is no leakage. Yeah?
We need to pick up very quickly on what is LNG, how it's being stored, and how is it going to be processed, and how we are going to mitigate the risk that accompanies it.
So from there, we can remotely observe what is the temperature at that point.
As LNG is extremely cold, it will test the vessel with thermal stress. As she sits for her final exams, will the Bellina crack? At Neste's regional headquarters in Singapore, a team seeks to buy raw materials from sustainable sources across the Asia-Pacific.
So another option is from Shanghai through the South China Sea, and we can ship the feedstock to Singapore.
Juliana is a regional supply manager who has been with the company for 10 years.
80% of our feedstock is actually waste and residue. So when we say waste, one good example will be the used cooking oil. For example, when you cook at home, there will be oil left after the cooking. Can you imagine in restaurants and in hotels when they do massive cooking, there will be a big amount of used oil left.
Most biofuel or biodiesel uses really a number of feedstocks. The feedstocks can range from palm oil to jatropha to algal oils. It can also use waste oils from cooking or industrial practices. It's really a blend of these fuel stocks.
Hi, Chef. We wanted to just check on the used cooking oil. So far, any issue?
While Neste works with many suppliers across Asia, one license collector in Singapore is homegrown startup Alpha Biofuels.
Today we are here at Jewel Changi, Singapore, because my company, Alpha Biofuels, collects all the used cooking oil that is generated by the F&B outlets here, and we send them back for processing in our plant to make them into feedstock for biodiesel processing. Well, in a day like this, we expect to collect about 1,000 to 2,000 liters of used cooking oil from all the F&B outlets. The volume varies from week to week, And especially in the holiday seasons, we tend to get a bit more.
When you have a restaurant in Singapore, after you finish frying, the waste oil cannot be thrown down the drain. It's actually illegal. And also you will choke up your drain, cause a bomb to clear the pipes. So that's where we come in. We are licensed by NEA to collect waste cooking oil from commercial restaurants and food outlets.
So we started collecting used cooking oil close to 14 years ago. It was a very different time then. Used cooking oil was not very well managed. And a lot of times there were different methods which is unsafe and unhygienic in the collection. For example, sucking them out from gutters and grease traps.
In the early days, used cooking oil can be collected by anybody, karang kuni, anybody with a lorry or even a motorcycle. It was not regulated. A lot of the cooking oil ends up in third world countries, possibly as second-hand cooking oil. So this is very unethical, and it might even cause cancer. So when we came into the scene, our mandate was whatever oil that we collect will be turned into biodiesel.
Every container of used cooking oil has a unique barcode that is tagged onto it. This barcode is then scanned from the kitchen as it changes hand onto our collector. And again, when we reach the plant, it is scanned again. It can be traced back to where it origins. And this is what we believe to be a very sustainable practice.
We will weigh individual jerry can, and this data is also required by NEA as part of the regulation for us being a waste oil collector. And this is also part of the sustainability and traceability report that we send to Neste. Capturing all the traceability data in such minute details has actually improved our business, meaning we are able to engage Neste, where we can actually help them to collect some of the used cooking oil in Singapore. We will suck everything out, pump everything out into here. This is our first settling point. We will let it settle. Because this is waste cooking oil, there will be debris, your sesame seed shortening, and sometimes your odd chicken bones and stuff. We let it settle together with the moisture, and then we will take the top part and we will send it inside for further filtration. Some of our logistics partners, ultimately they service global MNCs, and they are able to give their end customers a very comprehensive report of the biofuel that they use, which is coming from a sustainable source. So this is a typical collection. So you can see even just, it's actually much better than what people expect of waste cooking oil.
Traceability is the key of sustainability, actually. The traceability data actually helps us to ensure that the whole supply chain is sustainable and to enforce Neste's high standard of sustainability.
My guys has to go through safety briefing.
What makes one form of biodiesel more sustainable than another depends largely on its source. The traditional biofuel industry faced criticism for sourcing feedstock from sugar and oil crops. Competing with food supply raised demand for agricultural land and spurred deforestation.
So as long as we are using feedstocks that do not compete with arable land, I think it's a very good opportunity for us to expand upon.
From this line, this one. Then you come here, look ready, become the manifold. The manifold side, we can control the flow and observe the pressure of this coal vapor.
In the Keppel Nantong Shipyard in China, Andreas and Yap are overseeing final tests on the Bellina. She's an LNG bunkering vessel designed to deliver liquefied natural gas to ships in Singapore. Testing her operational readiness is the job of the commissioning team.
码头，讲过来。你的出口压力多少 ？My name is 赵宗石. Currently, I'm working the Keppel Nantong Shipyard as a site commissioning manager For commissioning part, we need to meet the requirement with the owners testing the ship LNG system from the beginning installation, site testing, and fully delivery to customer. This is my job.
Today's commissioning test involves cooling down the vessel's pipes and cargo tank to cryogenic temperatures. The Bellina must be able to withstand the thermal stress of containing its extremely cold cargo.
We are dealing with LNG, which is liquefied natural gas. They are basically cryogenic natures. So we are dealing with temperatures that is very low, minus 157 to about minus 162 type of temperatures. So the systems, the pipes, the cargo tanks, they have to be able to handle that kind of low temperatures.
This portion is a single wall pipe, that's why it has a frost outside. That also need to work under the cryogenic condition. If a glass is subjected to a sudden increase in temperature, the glass may crack. So similar for the tank. So we need to adhere strictly to the agreed cooling down rate to prevent any unforeseen damages.
Yeah, here.
The return line?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
We have the standard cannot more than 10 degrees per hour because this insulation cannot cool very fast. We need to slowly according to the very nice graph.
It took us approximately 4 days to actually cool down the tank from room temperature to negative 190 degrees Celsius, where we perform a cold test to inspect the insulation to see if there are any defects that came from the construction earlier. So far, there wasn't any foul, so it's a good cool down. There are instances from other shipyards that it failed. It can fail catastrophically in terms of structure failure, and it can also fail where the insulation cracks and you need to do repair to the insulation.
Right now in Singapore requirement, the door, if you open, I cannot start engine. Ignition. If the tanks have certain issue, we can't basically do our service. So in the sense, this is a very critical part of the vessels. So we need to ensure that this tank is always able to maintain the low temperature of the LNG.
LNG's natural gas vapors are flammable and can be ignited with a spark. So today's cool down is performed using liquid nitrogen instead of LNG, because nitrogen is inert.
If there's any leakage or any malfunction, it would allow us to identify the fault and rectify them under a safer condition as compared to using LNG directly.
严峰怎么样？现在现场温度怎么样？现场温度负96度。负96，很好很好。那个操作台是这显示器怎么样？Liquid nitrogen， 他们是minus 196。So we use this liquid nitrogen slowly cooling down。我看差不多好的话，下午2、3点钟就能差不多拿到负的零下162度。
The bunker boom should enable the Bellina to pipe LNG to ships of varying height. As the boom will carry cryogenic liquid, its maneuverability must be tested under extreme cold.
现在的效果已经达到了预期的效果，在现在温度降到零下130度的时候，运作自如，不管这个臂架是上升下降、左转右转，比较灵活，基本达到了设计要求。我们还会继续再降温。
So this bunker boom will give us the flexibility to serve a wide range of customers.
So far with the temperature get minus 120, we still testing the bunker boom, turn left, turn right, and up down is perfect. So we will continue the cooling down until the design temperature 116.2. Okay, we successful the 116.2 degree. According to our design, is perfect. When we finish this one, we can see really we start the loading LNG.
So the cooling down process is one of the important milestones for the construction of the vessels. I think I'm quite excited in the sense that we are one step closer of delivering the vessels.
The team can celebrate, but the Bellina faces its most risky test yet, gassing up with LNG. The fire department is standing by.
In case something were to happen, it would usually be catastrophic.
The Neste Singapore refinery processes an ever-growing range of raw materials.
Neste's portfolio consists of more than 10 different types of renewable raw materials. And these are the samples that we have. This is used cooking oil, for example, waste animal fats, and waste fish fats. And regardless of the different type of raw material that is put into our processing unit, that's where the magic happens. Whatever comes out is clean and clear, sustainable, renewable diesel.
Performance-wise, we have done quite well. The varying feedstocks that we actually take in, you need to be flexible enough to tackle all the problems that you face every day, but that comes with the excitement of it. I like making things, the idea that I can produce something useful out of something that is of no value, and this refinery does exactly that. So the process for manufacturing renewable diesel in Neste, it's largely in 4 steps. The first step is to collect the waste and residue streams, which are feedstock coming into the plant. The second step is to go through pre-treatment, whereby we remove the impurities which will harm the next stage of the process. Then we go through the next process, which is the Neste proprietary technology to convert feedstock to high-grade diesel. And finally, then it is the logistics and transportation where we actually deliver the final products to our customers.
Currently in the renewable fuels, our major markets are the West Coast in the United States, as well as British Columbia in Canada, but of course also Europe, because you have very good regulation, you have a drive, to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, so the environment is very favorable for our products.
Through 10 years of innovation and investment, the Neste Singapore refinery has nearly doubled its annual output of renewable diesel to 1.3 million tons. Now, Neste is massively expanding the refinery, seeking not just to increase its production, but to broaden its range of products and capabilities. An experienced and steady hand directs the expansion project.
My name is Petri Jokinen and I'm originally from Finland, but now I have been in Singapore more than 5 years. Neste made in 2018, towards the end of the year, a decision to invest more than 1.4 billion euros into this expansion of Singapore refinery. And now we are expanding this refinery, so there will be more than 1 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel. There will be also a possibility to produce feedstocks for chemicals and polymers.
The expanded refinery will be able to turn waste vegetable oil and animal fats into a range of products. Renewable diesel fuels cars, trucks, buses, trains, and ships. Renewable jet fuel serves the aviation industry, and renewable polymers can be made into plastic.
We're also expanding to Asia Pacific. We have signed our first Asian customer, the Japanese airline ANA, which is one of the leading airlines. And of course, we're expanding that, so we'd be very happy, at a certain point in time, also to have Singapore Airlines in the portfolio of customers that are buying sustainably produced aviation fuel.
As more and more biofuels companies and products come online, I think more and more aviation sector companies would switch to biofuels because most biofuels would claim to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 90% over its life cycle. So from a sustainability perspective, it makes sense for a lot of companies in both aviation or shipping sector or even ground transportation to use biofuels to meet their sustainability targets.
At the Keppel Nantong Shipyard in China, Singapore's first LNG bunkering vessel, the Bellina, awaits her final test after her cool down with liquid nitrogen was successful. The project's team takes the chance to celebrate.
I don't think I can handle 4 kids.
Who is helping you take care of the kids now?
No problem for you lah, 4 years.
Your wife will come over? My wife.
We are already almost at the end of the project, right? So I think I just wanted to go together with the project team. So I think it's good to celebrate certain things that to achieve this milestone in that sense, right?
Don't know how many months never talk to the wife. Oh. my wife don't want to talk to you.
Many of the team members from Singapore are homesick, as the project and the COVID-19 pandemic have kept them abroad for many months longer than usual.
When you are alone, that is the time when you start to think about your family, your wife. I came over to China on the first anniversary of our wedding. But that's something that I need to make up to her for when I'm back in Singapore.
Your whole family is in Singapore?
Yeah, only the night time use the WeChat. Same lah, same lah. Come to Nantong more than 9 months already. I also want to back to Singapore. I want to meet my family. My mom, my son, my wife, my whole family.
5 resilient, is it?
No, 5 respect.
Oh, respect.
I think she got only my artistic.
But in the weekends, of course, I'll make sure that I catch up sometimes with the families and kids.
I think basketball okay lah. Basketball quite, yeah.
I'm already here in the last 2 months, so in that sense. So I think they have, especially my wife, I think she has made a lot of sacrifice. In that sense, my kids is also in the growing stage, so I think it's not easy for herself alone to take care of 2 kids. So I think that part I have to thank her, and she's been supportive in what I have done or what I have done so far, at least in my career. Switching careers to so-called new business, LNG business, is something that I think initially I was quite afraid, but I think she supported me, and she said that you should do what you believe in. If you believe in the business, you should go for it.
No, depends how we can go back.
The next day, trucks filled with LNG arrived to gas up the Bellina. Filling her 7,500 cubic meter capacity with LNG is the most risky process she'll face in the yard, as LNG vapor is flammable and can be explosive in confined spaces.
Ivan, how much LNG is left in the 4th truck?
4th truck, we have about 80% left over in the 4th truck.
The risk actually peaks when we start the LNG bunker process. We will need to form up a 200-meter radius restricted zone. And inside this 200-meter zone, we have a 50-meter hazardous zone. Only essential personnel equipped with explosion-proof equipment and also donning the anti-static coveralls are allowed to enter. So this is the most critical part of the operation. In case something were to happen, it would usually be catastrophic.
How long more for the changeover to the 5th truck?
We expect another 2 hours before we change over to the 5th truck, 2 hours.
Okay, noted, thank you.
So in terms of safety measures, the city fire department and also the marine fire department, they all came in and offered help. With the assistance from all these government agencies, we managed to complete the operation in a very safe and controlled manner.
After tiring night-long work, the Bellina passes her final test in the yard.
This year, amid the COVID-19 crisis.
So finally, tomorrow we're going for the trials. After about 2 years of the project from the design stage until now, and quite a long journey to reach this stage. Feeling quite relieved, at the same time quite excited, because that will also mean that we will soon start our first bunkering business in Singapore. So yeah, I can't wait to bring this vessel back to Singapore.
Looking forward that is a successful trial and a well-deserved break after that, so that we can all go home and see our loved ones.
What activities do we have here today?
So we've just completed demobilizing our 1600-ton crane.
Okay. Requires quite a bit of planning, but I think it's going quite well at the moment.
The Neste Singapore refinery's expansion project is scheduled to launch in 2022 and be fully operational by the end of 2023. The expanded refinery would make new products, including 1 million tons of renewable jet fuel. But the project has faced challenges and delays in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
We have been having deliveries of equipment and material that has been arriving from over 25 countries. So we are impacted about this COVID-19 situation as it has been appearing in many countries.
So here we have an example of one piece of equipment that has been transported here, and we are installing these yellow staircases and everything, and only when those are installed, then there's going to be a large crane that is going to be taking this and moving it into position.
But I think the situation here in Singapore has been improving very rapidly, and now we are ramping up the construction activities at the site.
Expanding the Singapore refinery isn't just a matter of constructing new hardware. It involves doubling its 300-strong workforce, hiring and training an influx of manpower.
Right now, the situation is a bit peculiar. I have half my team supporting the current running plants, and I have half the other team supporting the Singapore expansion project in the startup and commissioning activities. My engineers are actually the trainers for the technicians who will be operating the new units in future.
If we hire people, we always look at, are they inspired by the purpose, creating a healthier planet? If they are not inspired, but they are extremely smart, we don't hire them. What we are doing is highly sophisticated, so you need to have very smart people with an excellent education. And the education system in Singapore is one of the best in the world, and we have always found the right people. We're operating, by the way, also the entire Asia-Pacific region in our headquarters in Singapore. We have received from the government very good support from the EDB. So that environment, the people, the education system, as well as the logistics, the accessibility, were the three major elements why we chose Singapore in 2007, but also in 2018 when we decided on the new facility that we are currently building.
Attention please. For those participating in the sea trial, please embark at 4:30. You will have a roll call and a safety briefing at the quayside. Thank you.
各位早上好，来站靠近一点，站靠近一点啊。
After clearing her tests at the Keppel Nantong Shipyard, the Bellina is ready for about a month of trials at sea. If she passes them, she will at last become Singapore's first ever LNG bunkering vessel. She will sail east along the Yangtze River till she meets the East China Sea. She will then head south towards Zhoushan, where sea trials will commence.
The main focus would be to test out the cargo handling system and the fuel gas supply system.
Whatever that you already upload, it will be kept inside the computer? Or...
Yes, sir. All the charts are inside. All. Actually, whole world is inside. My name is Captain Brinder Singh. So I'll be taking over the command of the vessel after delivery. Our vessel is designed basically to give bunkers to other vessels. So the thing is, the vessel should be capable in maneuvering in any condition and can be controlled easily, stopped if any emergency develops.
After tomorrow, if we have heavy rain, we can do the gas injection job.
So over the course of the past few days, we managed to finish all the tests and recorded the results. And with the owner and the class witness, we meet the specification.
Tank number 2 can see from this the city as
They have reported back that there's no major issues and the performance was good. As the days pass, as we finish test by test, I think that part I can become more relaxed in the sense that, it's almost finishing.
After sea trial will be the wrapping up of the delivery process and handing over to the owner. And last of all, we will do a flag change for the vessel. It's a symbolic event as the vessel will lower the Chinese flag and raise the Singapore flag. So it's like a transition of ownership from the shipyard to the owner. Upon delivery, Bellina will begin her journey back to Singapore. There's mixed feelings. Elation is one of them. It's like watching your child grow up, and on the day of his or her wedding, so mixed feelings. In the near future, when we are able to see the vessel in operation, providing LNG bunker to other vessels in the busy straits of Singapore, I think it meant a lot to me personally.
After overseeing the Bellina's delivery, Andreas will take a long-awaited flight home to take charge of her future operations in Singapore.
It's also a new milestone for me. There's a sense of nervousness because this means that we are also one step closer to our first operations in Singapore. It's exciting, but I don't want to be overly excited. There's a lot of expectations for the vessel, but I am confident that we can do these operations well.
So when the vessel reaches Singapore, it will undergo the inspections by the authorities before we will be issued the official harbourcraft license. Then we'll do our preparation for our first bunkering operation in Singapore.
Moving towards a greener future, I still see LNG as one of the most sustainable solutions for the maritime industries.
LNG vessels may emit 25% less carbon dioxide and less pollution than those running on traditional marine fuels. But liquefied natural gas is still a fossil fuel. It's mainly methane, a potent greenhouse gas.
The need of the day is to be fossil fuel free. LNG is definitely considered to be a short-term transitional fuel. So in some shipping lines would switch to LNG, while others may consider prudent to use other alternatives such as biofuels in the interim.
While LNG may be transitional, the lessons gained handling this cryogenic liquid on ships could inform maritime transport of liquid hydrogen, a zero-carbon fuel that's even colder.
Hopefully, the experience we have with handling cryogenic sources like LNG would be transferable to some parts of the hydrogen economy. Hydrogen is clearly seen as the fuel of the future.
The corporation that designed and built the Bellina aims to use its LNG know-how to fuel research into hydrogen. This is Keppel and EMA's new floating living lab. It will test hydrogen and clean energy storage solutions for harbour vessels and the grid. The lab will mainly run on LNG, refueled by the Bellina.
When the floating living lab is being deployed, this would be the largest energy storage systems in Singapore to date. And it would be able to power up to 600 HDB flats daily.
I think the role of hydrogen as energy storage will also become more and more important as we deploy more and more renewables onto our electricity grids. And by utilization of new technologies, this will even increase our brand to being a petrochemical hub that promotes sustainable practices around the world.
We are focusing a lot on the difficult to decarbonize industries where you need the internal combustion engine. It will take a lot of time until they will be able to be replaced by fuel cells, electrification, hydrogen, and these type of technologies. You need a lot of solutions that are available today, because otherwise we cannot wait until we are 2050 to start decarbonizing, to start reducing the CO2 emissions in those industries.
I am a firm believer of sustainability. What more can I ask for to link my passion with what I really believe in, which is being close to the refinery and contributing directly to the fight against climate change.
I feel very proud, and there is huge job satisfaction because you understand that sustainability is not just a tagline. It's really a commitment, the effort that you are playing your part combating climate change and really making the world a healthier planet for our children.